The intention of justice is to see that the guilty people are proven guilty and that the innocent are freed. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I'm your host, Samantha Beningo. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a 6th-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And today we are breaking down the Adelson case. Now, if you have kids, okay, you remember when you're first born. I only have one, so I only have a firstborn. But when she was born, first of all, I was a little bit older. I was like 32, I think, when she was conceived, and maybe 33 when she was born, something in that territory, 34 when she was born. So I'd been around a while before I had had a child. And it's traumatic, right? I mean, it's a full-blown trauma. Your brain gets hijacked by oxytocin and endorphins and all of these chemicals where you become singularly obsessed with that child. No matter what's going on before they're born, you become completely obsessed. And there's a lot of anxiety because you love them so much. You don't want them to hurt themselves. You don't want to injure them in some way psychologically. At least that was my thinking all the time. I didn't want to do the wrong thing. And so it's a very difficult time for new moms. Now, imagine that on steroids, because Donna is controlling. Her way of managing any emotional discomfort is to try to control the environment. And that includes all the people that she interacts with.
I'm so many of the things I am because of who my mom is and who she wants me to be. I was valedictorian of my high school. She seemed proudest that I graduated high school still a virgin.
Try to get them to do what she needs them to do to feel okay. And that's exactly how these children are ultimately raised. Now, apparently she's pretty good at it as their children because she was a teacher. And so she's pretty good with little kids, obviously, and getting them to do what she wants. I don't know how she does it, but she does. And we hear that from Wendi.
As a former kindergarten teacher, she is so adept in that role. She taught my boys how to recite the 44 presidents, just like she taught me when I was 4. I see myself in them, reciting, receiving praise. She has completely changed her life because mine fell apart. I write letters to her in my head every day, ones of immense gratitude for facilitating my return from the bottom. But when we speak, in the few fleeting moments when the kids or my dad don't need something, it comes out like, is the dishwasher clean? And if not, should I run it?
That's how sort of she manages her experience. It's one thing to do that when kids are kids. One thing to do that with a toddler or a baby. It's another thing to do that as your children begin to try to develop some independence and make independent decisions separate and apart from what you want or what you need from them. And of course, Donna is the matriarch of the group. She's the ruler, right? Everything starts and stops with her.
Well, I'm a domestic coordinator.
A domestic coordinator?
Yes. I'm responsible for the activities, classes, and lessons of my son Robert, who is 16, Charlie, who is 12, Wendi, who is 10, my husband Harvey, who's in the audience, and my dog Sam.
Donna is the domestic coordinator that in order to handle her emotional reactions to these 3 children's lives, she's in charge. That's how she's managing any anxiety. Wendi, she adores. We know from her own words that she loves Wendi the most. She also has been the most overly invested and involved in Wendi's life. With Charlie, Mom and Charlie are enmeshed in a different way. Charlie turns to his mother to take care of his life. In a way, she acts as a surrogate wife as he gets older. She deals with his business affairs, his insurance payments. She essentially acts as his responsible other half. And Donna sees Charlie as a little bit more disorganized, right? He's a little bit more ADHD. He can't contain himself. He's a little bit more impulsive. And part of the reason why he is encouraged not to get married by Donna, or at least is not discouraged from living this bachelor lifestyle, the reason for that is that Donna then can remain in control. She can remain in that ruler wife position that she wants to be in. Charlie and his mother are completely enmeshed, right? He calls her multiple times a day. He admits that at least one of those phone calls is entirely personal, and it's not really a two-way phone call. What we see in this pattern that continues through the time that he's in jail, waiting a trial, through the trial, and after conviction, that they just sit on the phone and Charlie just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. And during his trial, everybody who knows him talks about how much he incessantly talks and repeats himself. And I think even somebody, his old friend, I think his name is Ryan, where they have this big falling out about money. But everything he says seems to track with what my experience of Charlie is, which is that he can talk himself into believing anything. And that I could see, right? Because one thing I will tell you about Charlie's testimony, it presents as honest. Now, that doesn't mean it is honest. It presents as honest. He's very confident. He's never stumbles. And he appears to believe what he's saying. Now, there's 3 reasons why he could do that. 1, he has bought his own BS, right? 2, because there's truth to what he's presenting. That in his mind, maybe 2 things can be true. He could have initiated the hiring of the hitman and also technically been extorted because the money is exchanged after the hit, right? So in his mind, is there a way that he's blurring lines and ultimately believing his BS? Yes. And then finally, of course, there's the obvious 3rd option, which is that he is telling the truth. And then there was Rob Adelson, Donna's oldest. So we're going to hear from Rob, the oldest child in the Adelson family, the one who essentially absconded, who took himself out of the craziness by being less involved and frankly just physically absent for the most part from his parents' lives and from the lives of his siblings. Now, having said that, that's not to say he wasn't involved, that he had no relationships with his family members. He absolutely does, and we're going to hear that from him. He's just not enmeshed. He's not codependent with his mother, right? So, and we're going to learn about that. And luckily for him, because of the events that all occurred earlier in his life, he was able to get some distance from his mom. So he has completely emotionally, psychologically emancipated himself from mom. And I'm sure that has not been an easy situation for Donna Adelson. And thanks to these audio recordings between Donna and Charlie, we know exactly what happens when you put boundaries in place with Donna Adelson.
Well, how about when they went to Disney? They don't think of even telling us that I got it out of him when he said he was packing. I said, packing? Where are you going? Packing to Orlando? When I said, well, why didn't you tell me? We did come up and see you. Oh, well, it was a last-minute thing. What is that? Last minute? What is that?
First of all, I never met anyone who, like, last minute doesn't mean, like, 10 minutes. Last minute's like 10 minutes ago. Like, oh, we decided to go to the beach today.
Yeah, they decided during the week to take the kids. It was a meeting for him, but then they decided to go for the week. Okay, that's great. So say, hey, I know it's really far, but you guys consider driving up to Orlando.
Yeah,
I know we would have gone.
Wow. When they fly in, it lands 17 miles from you.
Yeah. And I'm not even telling them to drive down here. I'm just saying, why didn't you let me know? I'd come up, oh, yeah, no, we're going straight out to Naples. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Because I didn't do everything possible for you growing up, right? I was a really inattentive parent. Please, don't even get me going.
Yeah, no. Well, at least at least you're getting a little bit smarter.
It was not an easy exit for him. He probably does start out more enmeshed because Donna Adelson, remember, she is the domestic coordinator. So that was true even when Rob was little. But at some point, he has to break away. And that is not uncommon. So we're not going to get this part, but I will bring it in here. Now, the history with Rob is that
Rob Adelson is the good Adelson. Rob is the oldest child of Donna and Harvey, and he's in the far left of the picture. Rob is an ENT doctor on the East Coast. Wendi and Rob used to be really close. After Dan's unaliving, Rob was asking a lot of questions. He was told to not ask any questions, and since then, he's been estranged from the family. Donna and Harvey were always adamant with their children that they needed to marry within the Jewish faith. Rob broke up with the love of his life and ended up marrying a Jewish lady. They didn't last. It was a short marriage, and Rob was back with his original love, an Indian woman. And supposedly the whole family accepted it and all was well. And these are just some photos from the wedding, and it looks like that is Charlie with his parents.
He initially experiences a lot of pressure from his parents to marry a Jewish woman. At first, he succumbs to the pressure of his parents and of the dominant narrative in his family, which is you got to marry a Jewish woman. And so he does. And that ends quickly in divorce. And at the end of it all, he winds up marrying his true love, Haritha. And they abscond to New York State, where he goes on to be a successful doctor, an ear, nose, and throat specialist. They have children, they get married, but there's a repair. So the rupture is he leaves the Jewish wife and he goes on to be with the one he wants to be with because he goes against the narrative of the family. Eventually, there's a repair, and we see that because we see Harvey and Donna and Charlie at the wedding of Rob and Haritha.
Looking back, Rob and Haritha say there were warning signs right from the start. Even at the wedding.
It felt strange. It was more of like
there was a lot of tension.
Yeah.
It was palpable. You could feel the tension between the two because there had been other events leading up to this. There was some discord already.
Lasers, that's what it felt like a more like a bar mitzvah.
And then, of course, we're going to hear from Rob himself about his thinking, his version of the family dynamic, which is fascinating. Okay, let's get started.
We're not to testify about any opinions that you have concerning whether your family members or your mother may have committed a crime. Do you understand this?
Yes.
Does the defense or state wish for there to be any further instruction from the court that does not otherwise cover the substance of the ruling?
No, sir. Yes, sir.
Please, when yours. Yep.
Now, it's very clear here that Rob Adelson is nervous, that this is tough for him. And remember, he has not spoken to his mother at all, not for a long time, not even just since she was arrested, but going way back, right, to before that, before Charlie's trial. So they haven't spoken in a long time. He hasn't seen her in God knows how long. So this has got to be tough on multiple levels for Rob, who, by the way, knows that he's about to say some things that may incriminate Mom.
Mr. Adelson remains standing. Everyone else can be seated. Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth?
I swear.
You may take your seat.
And he, by the way, seems like a very sweet guy. He really does. He seems like a very sweet guy.
You can adjust the microphone as need be. Ms. Dugan, you may examine.
Also, remember, this is his mother, who he hasn't seen, is sitting across from him. He does a lot to try not to look at her, because I'm sure it's just unimaginably uncomfortable. But it also causes simultaneously, if you could imagine this, so imagine yourself, you are sitting across from your mother. You haven't seen her in a long time. She looks very different than the last time you saw her. She's on trial for her life. And you are also at the same time on national television testifying, right? So that's by itself pretty scary. So there's a part of you that's trying to put on your best face, like be the most put together version of yourself possible. And at the same time, a part of you regressing simultaneously because your mommy is seated across from you. So this is a very challenging position to be in for Rob Adelson.
Thank you. Could you tell us your name and spell your name for our court reporter, please?
Sure. Robert Todd Adelson, Adelson.
So think about this. Mom gave him that name, right? he doesn't have a name without mom assigning it. And certainly, based on the dynamics of this family, we can pretty much safely guess that Donna was the ruler who authorized the name.
Thank you. And what state do you currently live in?
New York.
And how long have you lived in New York?
13 years.
Okay, so since maybe 2012?
Yes.
All right. What do you do for a living in New York?
I'm an ENT.
Okay, so ear, nose, and throat doctor?
Yes.
And so I'm not sure of the exact date that he was married. My guess is it's sometime right around 2012. That's my guess.
Okay, so ear, nose, and throat doctor?
Yes.
And how long have you worked as an ENT?
20 years.
How do you know the defendant in this case, Donna Adelson?
She's my mother.
And Harvey Adelson?
So you see there that by itself was an emotional statement for him. A lot of grief on his face. It's sort of tough for him to even get that out. Sadness, right? That's the look is sad.
And Harvey Adelson, your dad?
Yes.
Wendi and Charlie Adelson are your siblings?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you grow up?
In Coral Springs, Florida.
Is that a bit north of Miami?
Yep.
About how long of a drive?
About an hour north of Miami.
Okay.
And you see him moving the chair. So he's trying to get some self-soothing going on here, trying to calm himself down. You know, that's what we do. We rock, right? Rocking is associated with what do we do with babies? We rock them to sleep. We do that for ourselves. And these are generally referred to as adapters, ways that we try to make ourselves feel more comfortable in situations where we don't, where our nervous system is being triggered, right? When we're starting to escalate, where our central nervous system is starting to ramp up, we're starting to become more stimulated, where our sympathetic nervous system is starting to become very activated.
When y'all were growing up, did you all, the five of you, live in the same house as a family?
Yes.
And who's the oldest child?
I am.
Okay. Who's the middle child?
Charlie.
How many years between you and Charlie?
3 years between Charlie and I.
And then who's the youngest then is Wendi?
Yes.
And how many years between Charlie and Wendi?
3 years.
Okay.
Which, by the way, make no mistake, was definitely on purpose, knowing this woman.
When you were 18, did you move out of the Coral Springs house?
Yes, when I went to college.
Okay. And did you go to college at University of Florida?
I went to Tulane.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Did you live in Gainesville at some point?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. So
Interesting.
after you went to college at Tulane and then went on to med school, went on to residency, throughout those years, did you continue to talk to your parents and your siblings on a regular basis?
Yes.
And would you see them a couple of times a year?
Yes.
When you were in school, would you go home for the summer?
Yes.
Based on your personal observations throughout your life of your parents and of your siblings, who is the leader in the family? Who tends to run the show?
I think my mom.
Okay, so Donna Adelson?
Yes.
Would
Clearly.
you describe Donna Adelson's personality as being more controlling or more laid back?
I think more on the controlling side.
What about, is she kind of a more assertive person or a more passive person?
More assertive.
What about your dad, Harvey Adelson? What's his personality like?
I think he's more passive, more go with the flow.
Okay.
If you've been married to Donna Adelson for 50 years, there's absolutely no way that you could be her partner and not be passive and go with the flow. It has to be that way.
Yeah.
When you and your siblings were growing up, was Donna Adelson a very involved parent?
Yes.
And when I say involved, as far as with your life and with your friends and with school and with that type of thing?
Absolutely.
I'm responsible for the activities, classes, and lessons of my son Robert, who is 16.
Did she have certain fixed ideas throughout your life of certain things she wanted to happen in you and your siblings' life?
Yes, absolutely.
Was it acceptable if you decided to not do those certain things that she was fixated she wanted you to do? Was that acceptable to her or no?
No, I think she had certain sort of rigid, fixed ideas or impressions for what she wanted for us, and if you went along with that, things were fine. If you didn't, things were not fine.
And we saw that, right? That played out in his life specifically with, you got to marry a Jewish person. The irony of that is that's exactly what Wendi does, and that exactly backfires to where now, at that point, right before Dan and Wendi are separated, she wants to parade her grandchildren around in Nazi attire to try to piss off this Jewish man that she has insisted that her daughter marry, right? So, it's ironic.
Did she have strong opinions about who you all married and what you all did for a living and those types of things?
Yes.
Coming from a family, my paternal side, where there was a strong insistence that you become a doctor. You either become a doctor or a lawyer, and that's it. There are no other professions. And watching as that pressure was placed on all of the children, all of the grandchildren, all of the great-grandchildren, and just how that plays out in one's psyche, how you become the black sheep if you go in a different direction and the entire family turns on you, right? I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. And of course, like Rob is saying, in that situation, you go with the flow. Everything's great. You're celebrated. You don't, and you're shunned, right? You're going to have problems. And so what do most people do? They go with the flow because they don't want the problems.
And you're obviously a doctor. Was that an acceptable profession to her?
Yeah, that was okay.
Okay.
That was okay.
And was that one of the reasons you became a doctor?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
How involved was Donna in yours, Charlie, and Wendi Adelson's life after you grew up, became adults, and had kids of your own?
I think still involved.
Was she more involved with your life, Charlie's life, or Wendi's life, would you say?
You're probably more involved with Wendi and probably to a lesser degree with Charlie.
Okay. And then would you be...
Well, and that's not entirely true. I think the way I would frame that is that involved in the decision-making in Wendi's life, lesser Charlie's, but she spoke to Charlie at least twice a day. Okay. And I've seen the way that these two communicate. I've listened to hours and hours of their phone calls. He could out-talk any person on the planet. This man just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. And Donna listens. That's how we know, by the way, that there's no sociopathy in Donna Adelson. You can't do that. You cannot, would not. There's no part of a person with a sociopathic profile who's going to sit and listen for hours and hours to another human being, no matter who they are. And she's not just like putting the phone down and running around doing stuff. She's listening. And how do we know? Because she's right on cue. The second that he asks a question, the second that there's an opportunity for her to interject, she does it. So she's listening to him for hours. Like that's not easy to do.
She's the least involved with your life out of the three?
Yeah, probably because I was older but sure, I agree.
Okay, so you're the oldest child. You're out of the house before the other two?
Yep.
Okay. And
makes sense.
You also lived other places after you went to college throughout the rest of your life?
Yes.
Now, was this like a healthy level?
Absconding, right? That's not accidental. Absolutely. This is kind of what we might call an avoidant attachment style, meaning that when there's anxiety, you run, you abscond, you insulate yourself by putting distance between you and the source of that anxiety. And by attachment style, that's an interpersonal attachment style. In other words, not just when you feel, anxious, but particularly when there's a interpersonal source of anxiety, meaning another person who's activating anxiety. One of those styles is to avoid. Again, shut down. Some people will, who can't physically remove themselves will shut down by going inside, right? By shutting somebody out. Others will put physical distance between them and the source of that anxiety. And it's a very effective method.
3 of yours lives, or was it more of like a micromanaging as you saw it?
I think it was certainly between over-involved and controlling. It probably lended itself more toward controlling, but there's in various realms, more or less. But I think certainly that was a tension.
Okay, so a little more on the controlling side.
Yes,
a little.
And does that include your personal lives as far as your relationships and in your professions, your jobs?
Yes.
Because, and the reason why those are so important, because Donna Adelson is singularly focused on the perception of others, right? She's raising these children an hour north of Miami, which honestly, and I don't mean to crap on Miami, but is one of the most superficial places in the United States. And I live in New York City. I've, go to school. I have to go for residency out to California, in Los Angeles. There is nothing like the pressure of Miami, South Beach. There's so much pressure to be perfect, to put up a certain superficial exterior, to have all the things, right? And particularly there's a large Jewish community in and around Miami, right? So a lot of the retirees from New York, where there's the largest Jewish community, that's where they go. They go down to Florida to retire or as they get older, because there's a huge Jewish contingent, huge population of Jewish people down there. And as those of a higher socioeconomic status in the Jewish community want their children to be perfect. There's a status associated with, being married and having a nice Jewish family, right? There's status with all of these things, bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, and that is what you're supposed to do. So for her, it's not just like, I want my kids to have a good life, because if that was the case, you wouldn't be driving the direction that life goes in, right? You'd be saying, oh, you want to be an artist? Great. Let's encourage that. You want to be, a garbage worker? Great. I'll encourage that. You want to do this? Great. I'll encourage it. You want to be a soccer player? Great. You kind of nurture the direction that they want to go in rather than insist that you do what I tell you to do, because that is what matters most. Now, that might be well-intended, because there's a financial incentive to all of this. She wants her kids to have financial success. I get it. A lot of people perceive, look, with the financial success and the notoriety and the higher status job, you will have an easier life in the end, right? Arguable, certainly. But that's the idea. And it's an old idea, certainly. It's a fixed idea that you see with kind of the baby boomers.
Was it Charlie who always needed more attention than the other two children?
I think so, yes.
You think?
Did Wendy's life?
So Charlie's ADHD. Charlie has an attention deficit disorder, certainly. I imagine he was very impulsive, very rambunctious, needed a lot of containment as a child, and he's continued to rely on mom for her organizational ability. She has allowed herself, rather than supporting him and learning how to do those things himself, she's allowed for him to just be totally kind of irresponsible in many respects. Now, I say that, but he's also an accomplished, medical doctor, right? I mean, so he's not incapable or incompetent. He's just sort of punted all the things he doesn't want to do, all the responsibility pieces that, adults have to take care of, like pay bills. He's just punted all of that to mom so that he could go jet skiing and out to dinner with friends, whatever, on his days off.
Start becoming one that she needed to pay or give more attention to.
I think when she had some troubles in her marriage, I wasn't aware there were any troubles in her marriage until Wendi left. But I think around that time when she had two young children, I think that was when she became more involved. And I was, at that point living, pretty good distance away.
Okay.
So what Rob is saying here is that he didn't even know that Wendi was having problems in her marriage until she left him. She left Dan.
My childhood friend Lisa told me this weekend that she never even knew I was unhappy in my marriage. I had no idea I hid it so well. I always thought that I had an expressive face, the kind that easily registered happiness and disappointments. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that most people think I am very happy all of the time, because I smile constantly to try to engage with people, make them smile too. I think this face is a kind of mask that I wear out of a life of endless practice, like a kind of muscle memory for the face.
That also speaks to the fact that Wendi is, she has integrated mom's wishes, meaning that they're automatic. She just does what mom has taught her to do, which is put up the exterior that everything is perfect and she looks the part, she acts the part, she smiles really pretty and she's, really sweet and she walks the walk. So it's not surprising that Rob would not have been in on Wendi's love life or the details of her marriage. And it tracks that, from his view, somebody who visits twice a year, on holidays, not surprising that he wouldn't know how unhappy Wendi was in her marriage.
Were you living in Philadelphia at the time?
Yeah, but first in Philly and then in New York, where we live now.
Okay.
So that's meaning he moved to Philly with Haritha, his second wife.
And so Charlie always got a lot of attention, and then Donna also started giving her attention also to Wendi's life once Wendi starts going through the separation or divorce.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And by attention, I want to correct this here. Donna was consumed with Wendi's life, not giving it attention. There's no doubt that Donna Adelson has always given Wendi attention. She became fully obsessed and singularly focused on Wendi when she began to go through the separation and divorce. And really, to Rob, that may have seemed to start at the point that she breaks with Dan Markel, but it started before that, because as we know from Wendi's testimony, she wouldn't have left if it wasn't for her quote parents supporting her in that effort.
From your interactions with Donna Adelson through your whole life growing up and even as an adult, would you describe her as someone who's mentally sharp, thinking about things from all angles, or is she someone who's a little more gullible? Were Charlie and Donna Adelson dependent on each other or pretty independent from each other?
I would say Charlie was probably somewhat dependent on my mom to help him out with organizing stuff, his dental practice. I think he probably relied on her a lot.
Okay.
You think?
And you mentioned the dental practice. When you were growing up, who owned the dental practice? Okay. And throughout your life, was Donna Adelson in charge of the money at Adelson Institute?
I wouldn't know the inside workings of it, but I always remember my mom signing the checks and writing the checkbook at the table, when I was back in middle school or high school. So.
Okay. So even back then, she would do some bookkeeping or payroll type things at home.
Now remember, in 1992, Harvey loses all the family money because of a Ponzi scheme. So my guess would be that Donna takes over at that point. That's a guess.
That's my memory of it.
Okay. And then did the dental practice, you said it obviously started out at Harvey's. Do you remember a time when Charlie Adelson took over?
I remember my dad making a joke about him having a very understanding boss because Charlie was now his boss. So.
Do not testify to what others have stated out of court. You may testify as to your knowledge, but not what someone else specifically said. The objection is sustained.
I have to say, I love this judge, and having come off of the 2 Karen Reed trials to see kind of what an objective authority figure in the room, in a courtroom, looks like is pretty wild. Pretty big difference.
You may continue.
I understand you were telling us how you remember that, but can you just tell us around what year do you remember that happening?
Around 2012, Charlie purchased the practice.
Okay, and then was there a time that you remember Charlie somehow selling it back to Harvey? Harvey Adelson as then becoming the head of the practice again.
Permit me to answer the question if you have knowledge of this matter.
My memory of that was sometime in fall to winter of 2015 to 16, somewhere right around there. That's my memory.
Okay, so fall to winter of 2015.
Turning into 2016. That's my memory.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Donna Adelson doing payroll at Adelson Institute throughout your life. If someone were to ask Donna Adelson, or if someone asked Donna Adelson to do something, is she the type of person that just snaps to it, or does she have some questions first?
This is not going to motion. You may answer the question.
No, I don't think she would just snap to and do what someone told her to.
Okay.
Obviously, she's going to have questions. She wants to know what she's getting herself involved in, of course.
Is she the type of person who's going to have some questions if you ask her to do
Yes,
something?
I think she would definitely have some questions.
Okay. How did Donna Adelson feel about Dan Markel when he and Wendi first got together and were...
So it's interesting. I can't see the setup of this courtroom, so I don't know where Rob is in terms of where Donna's seated, except that I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in front, not off to the side. Like, he's not seated over there, right? And that says that she can't look at him. Which tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how she feels.
Headed towards marriage.
He was very positive about him.
Okay, so he was somebody she approved of.
Yes.
All right, and how did that change as Wendi and Danny's relationship soured? They ended up moving towards...
Of course, she loved Dan Markel. He has 2 degrees from Harvard. He's an accomplished professor. He's an attorney. He's an academic, very smart, and he's Jewish. So, of course, she loved him.
Divorce.
So I really only heard anything bad about Danny after Wendi moved out. I didn't hear anything bad about him prior to that date.
Okay, so it just kind of went from everything's fine to then hearing bad things about him.
Yes.
And when you say hearing bad things about him, like from her? From Donna Adelson?
Yes.
Sorry? Okay. And how did Donna Adelson feel about Dan Markel in 2014?
You mean she hated him?
And would this come from, your knowledge of that come from things that she would say to you?
Yes. I mean, yeah.
Did you observe that Wendi played a bit of a damsel in distress, in your opinion, in their divorce?
Yes, I think that's a good way to describe it.
Did Donna Adelson ever talk?
Now, I don't think that was an act in the sense that you have to remember, like, once mom takes over and becomes once again, the ruler of Wendi's life, because Dan Markel's the ruler. He's the authority when she's married. Now, Donna's in charge again. So damsel in distress probably isn't an act. It's exactly what mom is calling from her. And you have to understand, I can't stress this enough. I cannot stress to you how automatic it is for you and all of us to regress when we are in a room with our mom. It's not even just our parents, it's our mom, right? You have to understand that is integrated into the way your nervous system has developed itself. When your mother is in the room, every cell in your body is aware of who that person is and is activated by it. So once Donna takes over as ruling authority in Wendi's life, that damsel in distress is going to become how she behaves. Remember Gibbers? It's just a less scary name.
Did Donna Adelson, I apologize, can I hear the question again?
Did Donna Adelson ever talk to you about Wendi and Dan Markel's divorce?
Some. I mean, the phrase that sticks in my head is that Danny was depoing Wendi to death. I wasn't involved with, all the various motions. I remember that phrase. I remember there being a lot of, court motions back and forth. But I remember that phrase. I remember, some complaints about like very long either mediation or depositions that Wendi had to endure.
Okay, so this is Donna saying...
And you'll remember Dan Markel takes over as the lawyer, essentially fires his team who are dealing with the divorce, and he just does it himself because, Dan Markel, I don't like to crap on the victim, was a bit narcissistic, absolutely no question. And by the way, you don't get 2 degrees from Harvard and become a professor at FSU. You don't become a, credentialed academic law professor, which is essentially all theory, right? There's no, how do I say this? When you're a professor of law, it's all theoretical arguments. It's all philosophy, right? Now, you could argue that there's a lot of that in various aspects of psychology, but psychology is a science, which means in order to be, an academic, a credible academic, your work must be founded in the scientific method. And by science, I mean research. That's the reason why, in order to be a professor in most, in almost any academic field, you have to have a doctorate, but not when you are a law professor, because there's not the same level of scientific rigor in research that you have to apply in order to become a professor, right? It's not as research oriented. And by research, I mean you have to conduct experiments.
What did Donna Adelson tell you about the plan for Wendi Adelson to leave the marriage?
Sure. She told me that when that she had been in Tallahassee for several months.
This is Donna Adelson had
Yes.
been?
That she had been in Tallahassee for several months, renting a new place for Wendi, arranging for movers, moving money around and getting things set up. I only knew this after Wendi had moved out, but she was relating to me what had occurred over the summer. And so I heard this all at once, but probably 5-6 days after Wendi had moved out.
So what Rob is saying is that after Wendi moves out, a week later, he finds out that Mom has been planning and orchestrating for this exit, that she's been secretly renting an apartment or a house for Wendi and the kids, behind Dan's back. She does it under her name or her maiden name. Like, she's moving money around. She is planning and getting ready for Wendi to execute the leave, while Wendi is not doing that, right? Wendi is working, being married, and taking care of her 2 children.
At the, somewhat gleefully or, pleased that they timed the phone call to Danny right before he was supposed to give a speech at the meeting he was at.
Okay. So a couple questions about.
So think about how ruthless that is, right? Like, that means that it wasn't the divorce, the litigious divorce, the motions going back and forth that caused Wendi to hate, or caused Donna to hate Dan Markel. That was already happening before Dan's reaction to the marriage falling apart, which means Donna must have had Wendi constantly reaffirming that she hates Dan. So by the point that Wendi leaves, she must hate him, because they think, or Donna thinks, it's funny that after she absconds with half of the furniture and half of their savings, and of course the children, while Dan is on a business trip, they then time the phone call just before he's going to go on stage and speak at a conference. On purpose. Now, you don't do that to somebody unless you hate them.
About that, you said Donna said that she had been up here in Tallahassee moving money around and getting things ready for Wendi. Do you mean for when Wendi moved out and needed a place of her own?
Yes.
Okay. And what did Donna tell you that she did to try to, hide the fact that they were renting a place for Wendi?
I remember her saying she had used her maiden name so there wouldn't be an Adelson up here renting, or hiring movers or such.
Just so word of mouth wouldn't get around that Wendi Adelson was renting an apartment, something like that.
Sure.
Okay. So they used Donna's maiden name.
Yes.
Donna did. And then you said that their plan was for Wendi to call Dan Markel as he was getting on stage, or right before he got on stage, to give a speech at a conference?
That's what I was told.
Okay. And what was Donna's demeanor when she was describing this plan to you, about how she was able to set up this place for Wendi to live in, everything was ready for her, and then this is how she gave Dan the news?
I think she sounded...
Donna's the one that gave the news? If not, then we
I believe the question was, what was her demeanor? You may
sir.
answer the question.
She sounded pleased to me.
Did you ever see Donna Adelson doing anything?
What was her demeanor? You may
Yes, sir.
answer the question.
She sounded pleased to me.
Did you ever see Donna Adelson doing anything to help Wendi Adelson with the divorce?
I think she was, answering a lot of emails and looking over emails that went back and forth, looking over motions and such.
Did you personally see that when she was visiting you? Did you see Donna Adelson doing those things?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, there's this kind of rumor out there that Rob is completely separated and estranged from his parents. That is not true, right? There's a reconciliation. He gets married to Haritha, all is well in the family, to the point where when his children are born, Donna is there. She goes up to be with them. So Donna visits her grandchildren, at least at that point, and is involved in Rob's life. Like, they're not as involved. And I think maybe he's about to say it, but at some point he shares that they would speak around or approximately once a week or once every other week. Now, that's a lot. I don't speak to my parents that often or even close to that often. Now, some people do. And I'm not saying that this is weird. I'm just trying to point out that he's not estranged. I mean, he's living afar, but he's not completely removed from this family, not by any stretch.
Was there an occasion when you all were in the hospital and Donna came to visit and was doing those things in the hospital?
I think it was at our home at the time, right before we went to the hospital. But yes, that's where we saw the email.
Okay. And while she was at your house during that time, is that when you were living in Philadelphia?
That was in Albany.
Albany, okay. Did she want the Wi-Fi at that time so that she could get on the internet and work on these filings?
Yeah, she said she had things to do to help out with the divorce.
What date would that have been? Do you remember?
October of 12.
Did Donna Adelson tell you that Wendi Adelson was trying to get permission to relocate to Miami?
Yes.
And did Donna Adelson tell you about the $1 million bribe she wanted to offer Dan Markel?
Yes.
So I think it's really funny that they keep using bribe because it is a little misleading. It was an incentive, right? I guess it could also be described as a bribe, but a bribe implies it was illegal or illicit in some way. And that's not true, right? They were talking about actually making this a legitimate offer.
During the year or two after Wendi Adelson left Dan Markel, how much time was Donna Adelson spending in Tallahassee?
You may answer as to your personal knowledge on the subject matter.
I can rephrase, Judge. Did Donna Adelson tell you information about how much time she was having to spend in Tallahassee?
She said that Wendi needed a lot of help because now she has 2 boys on her own, and so she was up there a lot. And I think yes.
Okay. Who cared more about Wendi Adelson's divorce?
One of the things that the defense attorney explains when she is cross-examining Wendi is that her mother was by her side because now she's a single mom with 2 babies, 2 toddlers, and needed the help. So mom is there cooking, cleaning, helping out with the kids. She's up in Tallahassee all the time. And of course, remember again, Wendi was working and mom knows that. So the reason that mom thinks of herself as Wendi's attorney in Miami, like the South Florida contingent of her legal team, is because she doesn't think or trust that Wendi has enough time to work on it, particularly to adequately give time and effort to this relocation motion, which to Donna is everything.
Okay. Who cared more about Wendi Adelson's divorce from your conversations? Was it Donna or Charlie?
Donna.
What are kinds of things is he really into?
Like go-karts, jet skis, going out, boats, not Wendy's divorce.
That's really funny. This is what he thinks of his brother, by the way. I mean, his brother, to his credit, again, remember, he's an accomplished doctor. So it's not like Charlie is a, freeloader living off of his parents and just completely irresponsible. I mean, he works his face off. But as we know, he's a pretty superficial guy. And that is to be expected because he is Donna Adelson's son.
Okay. And is Donna Adelson very into her kids and grandkids and their success?
Yes.
Do you think Wendy's divorce or her moving, do you think Wendi and her boys moving to Miami was particularly important to Charlie Adelson from Your observations?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
During the divorce, from your conversations with Donna, was she fixated on Wendi taking this job with a guy named Gary Cohen in Miami?
Yes, that was a common discussion point.
Okay. Did she seem like it was just something that she kind of thought would be a good idea, or something that she seemed to have a real obsession with?
It came up a lot in my discussions with her about this job with Gary, where she'd be making $1 million a year and to be a partner, and it was something that was brought up a lot, that she'd be able to take care of her kids in a way that she couldn't up in Tallahassee.
Now, one thing we know about Wendi up to this point, she's very financially supported by her parents.
And then it was probably the one thing that she mentioned to me, the only time I heard any anger after the murder had occurred, was that I asked, is Wendi going to go work for Gary now? And she told me that.
Did the job end up not working out?
As far as I know, it didn't.
Okay, and that you heard some anger from Donna when that happened?
She said his partners wouldn't let them hire her until they.
Okay.
Sorry.
But there was some anger there because the job didn't end up working out.
Yes.
They couldn't hire Wendi, or didn't want to hire Wendi after all.
That's what I was told.
Okay, thank you. Now, during the summer of 2014, did Wendi Adelson, I'm going to move on to 2014 now, did Wendi Adelson send you a text where she referenced having a boyfriend?
Yes.
And was this before Dan Markel's murder?
Yes.
Why was that memorable to you?
It was just unusual, Wendi, never was someone who would, share her, romantic life, her boyfriends, or, tell me or, text me about anyone she was dating. So it just stood out as, unique or different.
Okay. What did she, was there something in particular that she said that struck you? Okay. I guess, was it your impression that your parents knew about this boyfriend at the time, or no?
No, the text said, don't tell the parents.
Well,
Members of the jury, you are to disregard the last response of the witness.
may I approach, Judge?
You may. You may continue your examination, Ms. Dugan.
Okay, so I was asking you about this text that you received from Wendi Adelson. Can you tell me about this text?
Sure. She texted me that she was going to Gainesville for the weekend, and this was 2014, so I last lived in Gainesville about 3 years prior to that. Mentioned that she wanted that I mentioned the name of Jeff. I asked who was Jeff. The response was my boyfriend. I responded I didn't know, and she said you wouldn't. I didn't hear it from the parents. She says no, they don't know, and so it just struck me as. And then she sent me some pictures of Jeff with her and the boys. It struck me as unique because she'd never shared the name or photograph of a boyfriend before.
Okay.
I have a lot of thoughts and opinions about Jeff, but I will save them for a different time.
So,
Members of the jury, as to the last question and response, you are not to consider the hearsay statement for the truth of the matter asserted. You may continue.
okay. So it was unusual for her to talk to you about boyfriends at all.
Yes.
But you also felt it was unusual that she's telling you about this boyfriend when even your parents don't know about him yet.
Right.
And she was closer to her parents at the time than you.
Correct.
Okay. What date was that text message?
So here what we see, and I can't tell because we just don't have enough information to know how often Wendi tried to put boundaries in place with her parents.
My mom and I have lived together for almost a year. She is selfless, generous, loving, and beautiful. She thinks she is fat. She once got turned down for Weight Watchers because she didn't have enough excess weight to be admitted to the program. She thinks she is stupid. My mom, who won the New York Spelling Bee for middle schoolers when she was only in the 6th grade. I try to draw boundaries with my mom because lately there aren't any. She has completely changed her life because mine fell apart.
But it does appear that even though the prosecutors are trying to say that Wendi sent this text to try to lay a foundation that this guy was responsible for the murder of Dan Markel, I very seriously doubt that. I just doubt that. It appears to me that psychologically, what is more likely is that Wendi is trying to set boundaries with her parents.
But I think she's kind of dating Dave now. I wouldn't know. She doesn't tell me anything.
And we see this right around the time of Dan Markel's murder, unsurprisingly. And that, of course, continues. So she starts to put very hard boundaries in between them, particularly after Charlie Adelson is convicted.
When was the last time you spoke to your mother, Donna Adelson, as we sit here today?
November of 2023.
You did offer testimony in November of 2023 as well, right, on a related case?
Yes,
Okay.
October.
And did your mom, when you spoke to her in November of 2023, offer you any advice or thoughts about how you should act or behave or what you should say in court?
Yes.
She did?
She did.
And what was that?
I can't tell you I remember exactly, but she was hoping I would be supportive of my brother.
Okay. And do you know what her thoughts were afterwards?
I do.
Okay. And what were they?
She was devastated.
She didn't feel you were supportive?
No.
She sets a very firm boundary, like, I don't even want to talk to you. Just talk to me through our lawyers.
The very end of June, like 26 or 28 of 14, that last weekend.
Okay, so it was prior to 4th of July weekend?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember where in those photographs Wendi is with her sons and Jeff?
Like Wakulla Springs, something like that.
Okay.
And they're in front of a board that said that.
And did you let her know you wouldn't mention him to her parents or to your parents?
Yes.
Now, we find out later that, of course, the parents knew about Jeff. My kind of thinking on this, rather than this being some kind of a way to frame Jeff, I wonder if it wasn't that she had already told them she was not going to be with Jeff anymore, that she had split from him. And so the parents believed that they were done, not that they never knew about Jeff at all.
Did that strike you as so unusual that after Dan Markel was murdered, you felt, I guess, compelled to tell police, like, hey, I heard she has this boyfriend she hasn't told anybody about named Jeff?
Yes, I did. The FBI came to my house and I spoke to them once, and either it didn't come up or, it's a bit nerve-wracking talking to the FBI, and that they didn't ask any questions about that. And then, I guess over the ensuing week, I'd heard about like this Prius and this unsolved murder. And I remembered, it struck me as odd that I was sent these photographs of a boyfriend and not to tell the parents about him. And so that's when I wanted to have a clean conscience. So I reached out to the FBI and I said, I don't know if this matters, but I figured I would, tell you about this. And they came back for a second interview and looked at the pictures.
Okay.
Good for him to want a clean conscience, because let me tell you, that is a critical aspect of being able to live a healthy life, a mentally healthy life, right? Like, anytime that we take action, behave in some way that is counter to what we think is best for us. And I'm not talking about, what other people think is best for us, but when we take some action that knowingly contradicts our sense of right and wrong, our own integrated sense of right and wrong, not the right and wrong that the world says is right and wrong. When you go against your inner compass, that creates enormous problems for us mentally, literally in our lives, because there's this strong conflict internally. This is what facilitates substance use disorders, right? This is essentially the flame that ignites the fire that ultimately supports somebody from just abusing substances to actively tipping them over the edge into a full-blown substance use disorder, right? Because, so think about this. Let's say, has there ever been a time in your life, or did you ever know somebody when they're young, they get drunk, they do something stupid, they wake up the next day, they're embarrassed, they would never have done that thing sober? Well, imagine that you're using substances actively all the time. What happens is you become, under the influence, a literally different person from a physiological perspective. You are not the same version of you. You are a different, altered version of you, right? That's what we call altered states of consciousness, right? You're in a different mood. But that changes every aspect of your perception of reality. So what you like, what you don't like, what you think is a good idea, right? What you're motivated by changes also. And that's consistent. So every time you return, let's say that you're using cocaine, every time you return to using cocaine, you become that person again, the same person that you are under the influence of cocaine. That's the nature of substance use. So, however far away the distance between your behavior in one state, your normal state, is from that altered state, will create more of a need to use substances so that you don't have to feel actively horrible about yourself as a human being because you're actively going against what you think is right for you. That's what ends up taking, someone's desire to use substances from fun and, this is an enjoyable thing or a periodic escape or whatever to like full blown, I need this to feel okay. And that's a huge part psychologically of substance use disorders that most people just completely disregard or have no knowledge of. So now you're in the little circle of people that know something very important about substance use disorders.
His birthday.
July 5.
Okay, so on July 5th of 2014, how old would he have turned?
And I bring that up only to stress just how important it is to try to make decisions that are aligned with what you think is right. And so for him, good for Rob that he's making that decision. It's the right choice for him.
July 5.
Okay, so on July 5th of 2014, how old would he have turned that year?
70.
Okay, and this is about 2 to 3 weeks before Dan Markel was killed?
Yes.
Did your family do anything to celebrate his birthday that year?
Yes, we had a party at their condo.
Okay, was there a gift from the family or from any of you to him?
No, I remember an email, and my dad is not someone who wants gifts or a big deal made about him, and so the email was something like, your dad doesn't want gifts, he just wants all of his kids to be with him on his birthday.
And was that from Donna Adelson?
Yes.
So she's basically letting you know you and your kids coming is going to be his gift.
Correct.
And everybody, all the kids and grandkids being
Correct.
there. Okay. Did the family ever discuss going on a cruise?
No, not with me.
When a birthday gift is given for somebody in the family, does Donna Adelson typically say, we're going to get him this, everybody owes this much, everybody's going to pay a third, or whatever it is?
Yeah, if there was like a big gift we're getting, or they said, we're getting this for someone, and you can be part of it, that was not uncommon.
Okay, so tell us about the party. You said it was at the Continuum?
Yes, at their apartment.
Okay, so is that like a condo building in Miami?
Yeah, on Miami Beach.
Okay, on Miami Beach, like South Beach?
Yeah.
Okay. And is it a secure building?
It's very secure. It was, we were staying at a hotel down the street, and there was armed guards, and apparently there's a lot of celebrities that live there. It was a very high, very secure building.
Okay. And these celebrities that live there, were they people that you knew of? I mean, you knew who they were?
Sure. A-Rod.
Kind of guards of their own, too, in the building?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So the guards that you saw were the guards in the front?
Yes.
All right. Had your parents, how recently had they moved to the Continuum?
I got the idea, it was certainly less than a year. I don't remember exactly, but it seemed like they said they were going to try living down in South Beach to see if they liked it for their retirement. And so it had to be sometime, before, because they were pretty well moved in there. But I don't remember the exact time, but if I'm guessing maybe 6 months before or something like that.
Okay, so by the weekend of the party, July 5th, are they fully moved into their condo there?
Yes.
Okay, and are they living there full time? From what you know?
It seemed like that, but
And I believe this to be the last time that Rob has seen his parents. This 70th birthday party, which is in 2014, right? This is a few weeks before Dan Markel is killed or is murdered, gunned down, right? So that's 11 years ago.
I couldn't. I know they still own the house in Coral Springs, so I don't know if they're just there on the weekends, but I couldn't say definitively, but it looked like they were living there fully.
Okay. Was his party on his actual birthday or another day of the week?
No, on his actual birthday.
All right. Was your brother Charlie there that weekend?
Yes.
Wendi and her sons, were they there?
Yes.
Was the party catered?
Yeah, there was, yes.
What type of food did you have?
There were like past hors d'oeuvres, and then there was a paella chef on the balcony.
Okay. Was the party a surprise for Harvey?
No.
So you were never told, don't tell him about it, it's a surprise?
I guess this is to corroborate conversations between Charlie and Donna later. I guess that's why we're going into this kind of detail here.
No.
Anything like that? Don't tell him. Were you not supposed to tell him anything about the party that was a surprise?
No, there was nothing about a surprise birthday.
Was there ever a time in the weeks leading up to the party that you heard that the party may be canceled for any reason?
No, never.
All right, so how did you first hear about Dan Markel's murder?
I heard the day after the shooting occurred, so that would be Saturday, July 19. I was at a meeting in Chicago, and I think I got a phone call first, and then I was in a meeting, and so I just said, can I call you later? And then I got a text message shortly thereafter, like right before 10 in the morning, that said, like, tragedy here, please call.
And it is from Donna Adelson?
Yes.
Okay. So were you able to call her that morning from the conference in Chicago?
Yeah, so I walked out and went to the hotel lobby and just hit call.
Okay, and tell us about that conversation with her.
So it's one of those moments that you'll just remember forever. So I remember being in the lobby of the Westin, and I assumed something terrible had happened, and I wasn't ready for it. She said, so we just want to let you know that Danny's been shot, and they took him to the hospital, but he didn't make it. And it didn't make any sense. And I probably asked like a few medical questions, and they said they're driving up to go help Wendi, and we'll talk to you later. We can't talk now.
Okay. Right. I bet for him there would have been a lot of interesting medical questions because Dan Markel, I think, is shot in the face, right? So that would have been an area of understanding he would have had particular knowledge and awareness of. Just functionally, I guess that's not important, but certainly it makes sense why he would ask medical questions. And you can see that, this is a shocking moment for him to the point where, like, he's almost speechless.
Was she crying in that conversation?
Not in the conversation.
Sir?
No, she was not.
Okay.
It was very matter of fact.
Which, by the way, I don't think says anything or means anything. I mean, she at that point is already known for however many hours. And so I would expect it to be a matter of fact conversation, regardless of whether she knew about it or not.
Did she ever give you any further detail that weekend about how he'd been shot, or other than just Danny was shot and he didn't make it?
I think it was the next day. So the only really other time that I spoke with him that weekend, I was in the airport going home, like Sunday afternoon. So it was definitely the next day, and it was the first time I could actually have any kind of conversation. And one of the things that she told me is, it bothered me, but I didn't have any other details about. But she said that someone went to the front door and said, "Are you Dan Markel?" and then shot him. And then I said, "Well, how could you know that? Who's telling you that?" And she said, "Well, that's just what they're telling us." And
Okay. So she said someone told her that someone knocked on Danny's door, said, "Are you Dan Markel?" He said yes, and the shooter shot him.
That's the story I heard. And later we found out that wasn't what happened. But that story bothered me a lot because there's only one way you could hear that story.
It's true. I mean, you'd have to have, somebody have to be sitting right there watching the whole thing in order to know that. And that is a strange thing to report to your son.
Was she crying when she told you that information?
No.
You mentioned earlier that law enforcement contacted you after Dan Markel's murder. Did they contact you to try to see if you knew any information?
They came to our house. I was already at work, and so they talked to my wife. It had to be a Wednesday or Thursday, so I was already at work.
And is this your house in New York?
Yes.
Okay. And did you end up talking to law enforcement and letting them, answering their questions, letting them know what you knew?
Yeah, they came to my office the next day, and we with two agents, and we had an interview. Okay.
After that conversation with, you said it was the FBI earlier, right?
Yes.
Okay. After that conversation with the FBI, did Donna Adelson ever say anything to you about having talked to law enforcement or the FBI?
It was either that afternoon or the next day, but and she called me and said, just want to let you know, if the police come around, don't talk to them.
Okay, so she told you not to talk to law enforcement.
Correct.
Did you let her know that you already had talked to law enforcement?
And I said I already did.
What did she say to that?
She said, "Oh, well, you don't know anything anyway."
You don't know any.
What a incriminating conversation this is, right? I mean, try to figure out in your mind why, in God's name, Donna Adelson would say this to her son. I mean, the only reason, this is within the 2 days after, the only reason would be, number one, because you did something wrong, or because you get wind that they already suspect your family. But if that's the case, then you would say that, right? You would say, "Listen, Rob, these cops seem to think Wendi had something to do with it. Our lawyers are advising us not to speak to law enforcement. You can do what you want. obviously you have no knowledge of anything, so it doesn't really matter. But that's not what she says. Instead, in typical Donna Adelson fashion, she's giving directives and she's not explaining herself very well. So of course it comes off as incriminating, right? And that's the problem. There could be a completely innocent reason, but she's not communicating that, at least not clearly enough that it stands out in his mind and that he's reporting that to us. And unfortunately, and I think this was a mistake, there's no real cross-examination of Rob. I think there should have been. If I was the attorney, I would have cross-examined him because I do think he has a lot more information and that in context, some of this could have been turned around to not seem as incriminating. But by not cross-examining him, and I understand why they didn't, they don't want to attack her son, I get that. But by not doing that, you just allow for all of those statements to sound very incriminating. You don't push on it. And it just makes everything she says sound like she did something wrong, like she has consciousness of guilt, Donna Adelson.
Anything anyway?
Correct.
Was that an unusual statement coming from your mother?
Yeah, everything that week was unusual, but I clearly didn't know anything, but I wasn't going to not talk to the FBI if they show up at my house.
How did you respond? Let me ask you this. After the murder of Dan Markel, did Donna Adelson seem curious about who killed Dan Markel?
No.
Was there a complete lack of curiosity?
Yeah, nobody seemed curious.
Did you actually ever ask her, like after the murder, like, hey, like, what do you think happened? What do you?
Yeah, and the conversations were kind of rerouted, or that was certainly discouraged, and it was probably like maybe sometime like mid-August, when I finally had a chance to ask and say, what is going on? This was not a small event. This was getting a lot of notoriety. And I said, what do you guys think happened? And she had said, I don't know and I don't care. It doesn't concern me.
Was that out of character for her to not be curious and not be asking some questions?
Yeah, it was an unsolved murder of, my former brother-in-law, like someone that we all know very well.
Yeah, this is the father of her grandchildren.
If it was like some neighborhood gossip, people would be interested. This was like,
even if he was the world's biggest jerk, like even if Dan Markel was like a universally loathed human being, you still want to know who the hell did this to the father of your grandkids.
National interest, and nobody had any curiosity about, who did this to Danny.
And it would have been one thing if Donna had said, listen, we don't know, and the lawyers are just saying, stay out of it. Makes sense. But that's not what she communicates. What she communicates is an emotional sentiment. I don't know, and I don't care, right? So that's not like, oh, my lawyers have instructed us to not say anything about this to anyone, right? That's not what she's saying. What she's saying is, I don't care, which is very different. That just makes it seem like, good, I'm glad he's dead, right? So it's not a good look either way.
Person, you mentioned that, not only is it your brother-in-law, but it was like national news at that point as well.
Yes.
And regardless of it being national news or not, is a person dying from gun violence an extremely unusual thing to happen in your family?
Yeah, to this day, Danny's the only person that I know who's died from gun violence or been a victim of gun violence, so it's unique in that manner.
What would your mom, Donna Adelson, do if you did try to ask her any more about Danny's murder after that?
It wasn't a subject for discussion. It would be rerouted, or it was just not a subject to discuss.
When you say rerouted, do you mean like changing the subject?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fast forward to 2016.
I think at that moment, he actually looks over at his mother. I can't be sure, but it's the one moment where I actually see his eyes look over at her. And this is also in his testimony when his kind of disposition shifts from anxious and sad to anger. So here we're starting to see the transition from from feeling bad that he's there, right? From feeling sad that he's there to now being pissed, angry at his mother. And that's the one moment where he glances over and I think actually looks at her directly.
Do you remember in May of 2016 when Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera were arrested?
Yeah, I do. I actually saw it in the OR lounge. Someone told me about it.
So there he says, I saw it in the OR lounge, meaning in the operating room lounge.
Wednesday, and
you were in the operating room
yeah,
lounge?
it was
and someone
the lounge.
told you about
it?
it?
It was someone else, because
Okay.
Stories like this people see on Twitter or such, and I remember someone telling me, like, hey, did you hear about that case, because it's more than one person had followed it, and I saw it, and then that was on the 26th, and I remember the dates because our anniversary is on the 28th of May. My wife and I were like, should we call them? Like they arrested some guy who killed Danny, and
When you say then, you mean like should we
my
call
parents.
our parents? And
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So it was big news that even people you work with were seeing that there were finally some arrests made.
Right.
Okay. And that was 2 days before your anniversary, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so did you and your wife eventually talk to your parents?
We did. Like we thought, like, should we call them? And we figured, if they wanted to call us, they would call us, and then they didn't. And so we figured, well, they'll call us on our anniversary, and so we can just sit tight. And I'm sure it's pretty stressful.
It's interesting. Donna just looks like she's listening carefully. Like she's almost curious about his view of, what happened.
And this guy was arrested in Miami, and so they called us on our anniversary, which was the 28th.
Okay, so that was 2 days after the arrest, I think?
2 days after I found out, yes.
2 days after you found out, thank you. So on the 28th, did you talk to Donna Adelson?
Yes.
All right, and when she called you, was she telling you the good news that...
By the way, think about how predictable Donna Adelson is. They know when she's going to call. Now, I get it. It's their anniversary, and that's an absolutely, normal thing to have your parents call you on your anniversary. So I get it, but it just speaks to like how predictable Donna Adelson is. And if I'm the cops investigating this, that's what I would have focused on. I would have looked at Donna Adelson's pattern of behavior, because clearly this woman was habituated, very controlling. And when people when they err more on the side of using control to manage their anxiety, they're also usually very predictable, because predictability is how they manage their anxiety. Knowing what they're going to be doing and where they're going to be from day to day to day, and where other people are going to be and what they're going to be doing from day to day to day, is a way to manage discomfort, uncertainty, and anxiety.
Danny's killers were arrested?
No, just called us for anniversary, and wished us well, and had some small talk for a bit. I kind of let it go for a little bit. I mean, this was not small news, and so I finally broached the topic and said, they found the guy, they arrested someone who killed Danny. There's no response, and I said it, at least 2 or 3 times that they arrested, they made an arrest. They got the guy who killed Danny. And then her response was, I've got to go.
And then did she hang up the phone after that?
Yes.
And you can see he's sad there. He's sad there because there's like a mix between sadness and anger, because that's the moment for him when he really started to believe that his mother was involved. Right? So you can see why there's anger and sad, because he might have been curious to this point. He might have had suspicions. But at this moment, when she hangs up that phone, he realizes my mom is involved in this. Right? Closes his eyes because he's now remembering how sad it was for him, that he's like, oh my God, my mother did this. I have a thing for seeing men cry. I don't know why, but it's tough for me.
You ever talk to her about it again, ever after that?
No.
Yeah, that's the moment. That's the moment. And you see her looking away, and you see her level of stress going up. Her blink rate goes up there because she knows. She sees it. This is her son. She knows. He knows that she did it, or that he believes that she did it.
Other than, her reaching out for happy birthdays, happy anniversaries, that kind of thing, was that the last conversation you had with her?
That was the last time I spoke to him.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Because he believes she's guilty. I actually like that prosecutor more than Georgia. I don't know. Georgia just gets under my skin a little bit because she's so sarcastic, and she sort of puts this air into everything that she says. I like this woman. She's just much more straightforward, much more matter of fact, obviously more junior also, but I think that's just I don't know, a more effective style for me anyway. Makes her more likable.
Say it again. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
In between 2012 and 2014, how many times did you come to visit your family in South Florida?
2012 and 2014. My daughter was born in October of 2012, and so I think my dad's birthday. I don't know. There was a Thanksgiving, I think, in 2013. So pretty much Thanksgivings were the times when we would travel, having a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. So.
Sure. Okay, so Thanksgiving of 2013, and then your dad's birthday in 2014.
Yeah, there could have been one other one, but I remember those two for certain that I could swear to.
Okay, and when you came for his birthday was on the 5th. You came in on the 4th. The party was on the 5th, and you left on the 6th, correct?
That's my memory of it.
And Thanksgiving, kind of the same thing. I mean, you got a job you got to get back to, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And how frequent were the phone calls that you were having with your family?
Probably less than once a week, maybe every other week, something like that.
Right. I mean, that to me, that's a lot. That's not estranged. But the point here, particularly compared to how much Donna speaks to Charlie and Wendi, this is not frequent. And the point that the, of course, defense attorney is making is that he's just not involved in the nitty gritty of what's going on.
And when I say family, I think I'm referring to Donna.
Sure.
Okay. Now, you were here on the 5th for your dad's birthday. You said you went home on the 6th.
Yep.
And Danny Markel was brutally murdered on July the 18th of 2014. That was in the summer.
Correct.
Recall that?
Yes.
And when did you arrive in Florida to be with your family?
I didn't.
Thank you. You had mentioned in your direct testimony that your mom called and said you shouldn't talk to the police. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I do, yes.
What actually happened was a family friend, Michael Weinstein, you know him, correct?
I do, yeah.
Your mom indicated that he had called and advised that as a family friend and an attorney that you all should not talk to the police. That's what she told you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So, and that was helpful. I'm glad. I think I mentioned before, I didn't think there was any cross. I just remembered there was a few questions. They were helpful in clarifying. However, I would have liked for her to kind of go further. And again, I understand why she didn't, but I think had she, because he answers this way and we find out that, oh yeah, mom didn't quite say it the way that he presented it, my guess is that this attorney could have gotten him to reframe a lot of these statements, but she doesn't.
Redirect examination.
So there you go. There is the testimony of Rob Adelson. I do think it's an incredibly incriminating testimony for Donna because he believes, as we just saw, that she's guilty. And he believes it because when he calls, so what we get from Rob is that the moment that he believes, and he's sure in his gut that mom has done this, is when he calls to say, hey, they got the hitman. They arrested somebody in Miami. And mom says, I got to go, and click. That's the moment where he says, oh my God, she did this. So at least we know how Rob Adelson feels. And I will tell you that I am pretty sure Donna Adelson is going to prison for the rest of her life. That, in my opinion, this trial was over before it started. Much in the same way Charlie's was, although I actually think he presented himself like 1,000 times better than anybody anticipated. And if he didn't get off, I just don't see it. I just think that neither of them really had a chance because of the fact that this is in Tallahassee. There's so much notoriety. There's so much information out there. This has been presented for 10 years by the media as though they are guilty. And so I think, they were already working against the grain on this one. And so there you have it. There is Rob Adelson's version of events. very interesting. The one thing I will say for Rob, and luckily for him, he has a strong constitution, a strong inner compass, and he's following it. He makes the decision to not marry the Jewish woman all the way back in 2004, 2005, gets divorced, and then says, you know what, screw this. I'm going to do what's right for me, and pretty much never looks back. And luckily for him.
It is the defense counselor's duty to protect the rights of the individual, as it is the prosecution's duty to uphold and defend the laws of the state. Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through eyes covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.